ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Louie? Yeah.
The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Saturday Night Football overtime. Doubleheader. Had two games today on the docket, both with playoff implications. The nightcap, obviously, win and you're in. It doesn't get any better than that. So we'll save that one for last. We just watched the Houston Texans punch their ticket to the postseason with a 23-17 win over the Indianapolis Colts. The first game of the day featured two hated rivals in the AFC North. As you know, all games in Week 18 are family business, so I don't have to tell you that it was a family affair. However, the Steelers were playing for their playoff lives. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens had already locked up the number 1 overall seed in the AFC with the 19-56 thrashing of the Miami Dolphins, or rather 56-19 thrashing of the Miami Dolphins a week ago. So they didn't play Lamar Jackson. There still were starters in the game, but it was a nasty affair in terms of the weather. We knew that. I told you guys that the weather forecast on the East Coast in particular was going to be really wet and in some instances white, right? I thought there was a chance we could get snow here, but it wasn't cold enough, and so it turned out to be wet weather in Baltimore, and boy, it was nasty. And the Steelers pull out the 17-10 victory, and you know, there are going to be some questions whether the Steelers make the playoffs or not about their quarterback situation. I can't say enough about Mike Tomlin. And we'll talk about the game here in a second. There's not really much to that game other than a couple of, big plays. Really one in the second half for the Steelers in particular, and then a forced fumble late in the game that kind of put them in a position to get that final field goal to put the game out of reach. But the Ravens weren't going to score another touchdown. At least I don't think. Anyway, I digress. The job that, Mike Tomlin has done yet again. He did it again. It is just remarkable. And, Steel City, if you're out there, I know. He's sick of the Mike Tomlin praise and love for being what a lot of Steelers fans consider, being, I don't want to say mediocre is too strong of a word in terms of mid, right? Because Mike Tomlin's been anything but mid and mediocre, but they haven't had a realistic shot at winning. And when you're there, that's a spoiled fan base, and rightfully so. When you've won the most Super Bowl rings in NFL history, you have a right to be spoiled. You have a right to expect excellence, and they haven't had it. They haven't won a playoff game in what seems like forever for them. And they haven't been in a real conversation as a Super Bowl contender in quite some time, but they keep making it to the postseason, or they're hanging around the postseason. And Mike Tomlin has never had a season under 500 in his career. That streak continues this year. And now they wait, right? They win this game and they sit and they wait. And it's their fault, right? They could have been in a position to already clinch. Had they just beaten one of two teams, they should have beaten both, but just beat Arizona or New England at home. You didn't have to beat both. You should have, but all you had to do is beat one of them, and you lost both of those games. And so you find yourself hoping that something happens on Sunday with either Buffalo or Jacksonville to allow you to get into the postseason. But at the end of the day, they went into Baltimore, did what they had to do. It was not pretty, but it was gritty, and most importantly, it's a dub. But the biggest question for them, whether they make the postseason or not, because as of right now, if they make the postseason, Mason Rudolph is getting the start in the playoffs, right? Who are we kidding? I mean, their season was on the line, and they didn't turn back to their second-year quarterback. Instead, they stayed with the guy with the hot hand. You don't do that if you believe in your young quarterback. So what that leads me to believe is that there are questions about Kenny Pickett. Now, again, they may not be bailing on Kenny Pickett. They did spend a first-round pick on him. He's only going into his third season next year. So there's still time for them to allow him to figure things out. And I'm not saying that they're going to bail on him, but there will be a few options potentially in the offseason that may become available, most notably Justin Fields. I'm not saying that the Steelers are going to go after him, but these are conversations and topics that will be kicked around this offseason because they are showing that they don't totally believe in Kenny Pickett. Mason Rudolph, believe it or not, is playing the best quarterback that the Steelers have seen since prime Ben Roethlisberger, not the end of Ben's career where he was hanging on by a thread. We're talking Ben Roethlisberger, probably 3 years before he retired. This is the best quarterbacking they've seen. This little stretch, this little pocket here from Mason Rudolph during these 3 games that he started, that they've won, that have put them in they were 7-7. Keep this in mind. Their season was on life support. They were struggling, losers of 3 straight. Matter of fact, I think it was losers of 4 straight. I think they were 7-3 at one time with the Steelers. If not 7-3, 7-4. And then they went on this cold streak. They were losing games. Mitchell Trubisky had to start because of the injury to Kenny Pickett, who wasn't playing great football to begin with. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. In comes Mason Rudolph because they're sick of watching. They lost 3 straight, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken. Arizona, New England, and then Indy on the road. And you go from 7-4 to 7-7, and I already told you can't make the playoffs. You're not going to make the playoffs because the Bills are going to win and the Jags are going to win. You're not going to make the playoffs. And you don't deserve to make the playoffs. But the fact of the matter is, you go from 7-4 to 7-7. Your season looks like it's over. And Mason Rudolph is inserted into the lineup. Boom, you get a spark. You ride that out. You win 3 straight. You put yourself in a position now where you sit and you wait and you see what happens. And Mason Rudolph, for the 3rd consecutive game, didn't turn it over. Mason Rudolph, for the 3rd consecutive game, managed the hell out of the football game. Yes, and he admitted this after the game. He took a couple of bad sacks when they were in positions to kick field goals and things of that nature. And so he did own up to that. He did have the fumble right before halftime that that took away another opportunity potentially to try to put some points on the scoreboard. But outside of that, when he was able to have time in the pocket, 18-20, highest completion percentage in Steelers history with a minimum of 15 attempts. That's a 90% clip, guys and gals, right? No, not a ton of yards, but for the type of day that it was, and then that throw to Deontay Johnson in a tie ball game at 7 apiece, that was really the game for all intents and purposes. That was the game-winning score. They would later add on a field goal after a beautiful punch-out. I want to say it was Rowe with the punch-out, forced fumble, and Marcus Golden recovered, and then you go down, you kick a field goal. You burn up about 4 or 5 minutes of the clock, kick a field goal, and then that puts Baltimore down 10 in the second half where neither team really did anything offensively. So it's another game where you have your quarterback come in, Mason Rudolph, manage the hell out of the game. Najee Harris, this is stunning to me, but it's not a surprise. When I've watched all of his games in Pittsburgh, and there seems to never be any real consistency. So I don't know why I was surprised, but I was still shocked when I heard that he's never had back-to-back 100-yard games in his career. So to see him eclipse 100 yards for the 2nd consecutive game, he was outstanding against Seattle last week, outstanding again tonight. They fed him the rock. In a game like this, with the weather being what it was, you have to feed your back. They fed him 26 times, I think 112 yards, if I'm not mistaken, on the evening. So he was huge in this victory. They kept talking about George Pickens not getting the football, and we know he can be a loose cannon at times when you don't feed him. Feed me, Seymour. When you don't feed a receiver that has, that kind of edge, problems can ensue. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles with A.J. Brown, right? I'd liken George Pickens' temperament to that of A.J. Brown. If you don't get him the football, there's going to be problems, right? We've seen him, and he's young, and I think he's got the right coach to kind of calm him down. Tomlin, I'm pretty sure he talked to him after this game. He's already talked to him about showing up his quarterback on the field, and he gotten that straight. But you have to get guys like Pickens involved. And I'll never, for the life of me, and as a Commanders fan, I talk to our fan base all the time. It's not hard. you want to get your best players involved, it's not hard to get your guy the football. And there's never, ever an excuse for your best receiver to not touch the football. In a half, for me, in a quarter, but, sometimes the flow of the game, you go 3 and out, and the other team has a long drive. It could happen in a quarter. Hell, it could happen in a half, right? But it should never happen in the entire game. There's no excuse for that. And for me, personally, in my first or second drive, in my first scripted 15 plays, as we know, usually you come out with a script. My best player is touching it at least once in that first 15 plays. There's going to be a play designed or two for my best player to touch the football. Now, I might have a shot play. They might have a perfect defense to take away that shot. That's fine. I still got another one in my bag, a quick, wide receiver screen, a slant, something that's easy, a quick out, 5-yard out, something just to get him involved in the game, get those juices flowing. He never touched it in a receiving capacity. He did have a huge 4th and 1 jet sweep that they gave him, and he converted, but he didn't touch it in a receiving capacity, and they made a lot about that. Look, at the end of the day, they won the football game. That's what's important. Had they lost and he didn't touch it, now we got an issue, right? And that's kind of how I am. Like, if we're winning and guys aren't touching the ball, it sucks because you want to get your best players involved. But the reason that I get bent out of shape about your good players not touching it is because that's your easiest path to success, is getting the football in the hands of the guys that can do the most with it. If you're winning, though, then what are we talking about, right? You're finding ways to win. Okay, I still would like to see my best players touch it, but okay, winning cures all. We hear this all the time. So they won the game, so it's okay. Had they lost, different story. But the biggest loss in this game, even though the Steelers won, was that of TJ Watt. And you never like to see a guy get hurt, especially a guy the ilk of a TJ Watt. Came into this game with 17 sacks, got another 2 in this game. Like, is there a more dominant edge rusher in the NFL right now? What did he have last year? 20 and some change last year? What did he have last year, right? Did he set the sack record last year? Did he come close to setting it last year? Didn't he win defensive MVP last year? Didn't he win defensive player of the year? He's in that conversation again. He's got 19 sacks. This dude is an animal. He's a freak. And you hate friendly fire. Shit happens on the football field. It is what it is. But with all the crazy shit that can happen, the one thing you don't want to do is see a teammate injure another teammate. It's already a dangerous enough sport. And unfortunately, his teammate didn't see him. He didn't see his teammate. And he fell on his leg. And what Adam Schefter reported is that it's a grade 3 MCL sprain, which they're not making the playoffs anyway. I've already said this. So it's not going to be something that actually factors into anything. And I'm glad it won't factor in, because he's going to try and play, and he can't. He's not going to make it back in a week, not from a grade 3 MCL sprain. So, the good thing is they won't make the playoffs. He won't have to rush and risk anything, because without him, they don't have a shot. And I saw a stunning number today. The Steelers were undefeated when leading in the fourth quarter this season. Or I don't know if it was just this season. It felt like that number was like robust. Like, it might have been just this season, but it might have been the last 2 seasons or something like that. It was a crazy number, though. But what it speaks to is they have closers. So they get a lead, and doesn't matter if it's 3 or if it's 7 or if it's 4 or if it's 6. They got Alex Highsmith and they got TJ Watt, and one of those dudes is going to hit home and put you in a tough spot and force you into a 3rd and 19 or a 4th and 18, and they're going to get off the field. That's what that says, is that when we get the lead in the fourth quarter, we have closers. That, to me, is when a guy like TJ Watt makes his money. When you know that you have to throw it, they know that you have to throw it, and now you got to find a way to block him, and he still hits home. That's what makes him special, is that he gets the sacks when they matter most. We see a lot of these guys in the league amass 13, 14, 15 sacks, but when the game's on the line, you don't hear from these dudes. Watt is one of the few guys. Myles Garrett is another one, right? Aaron Donald is another one of these dudes that'll wreck some shit with the game on the line, right? Those are the types of dudes that scare the living hell out of me because I know they're going to give me their best when their best is required. And that's why the Steelers are what they are. Because when the game's on the line, when they need a play, dial up 90. He always picks up. So that's a huge loss if they were to make it to the playoffs, but they're not, so it's not going to matter. On the Ravens side, we really don't need to discuss the Ravens, right? The only thing, if you're a Ravens fan, that you might have PTSD over is you've done this before. 2019, number 1 seed, rested your players in week 17, didn't need the game, come out, your first game at home versus Tennessee, and Derrick Henry runs over you. Ryan Tannehill throws like 9 passes and you lose the game and you go home, right? That's the only thing you're worried about is, can we not come out and be rusty and have some of those struggles that we've had in the past in the postseason? If you're a Ravens fan, that's all you're worried about. This game, you didn't lose anybody. You didn't play most of your guys offensively. In this game, you did play. I saw a lot of starters out there on the offensive line. I didn't see any of the receivers for good reason. No Lamar, obviously. But the running backs were out there, Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. You did just sign Dalvin Cook to your practice squad, so he'll be available probably come postseason time. And it's kind of happening at a great time for you because now he's got all this week and next week to kind of get integrated into the offense, to be comfortable enough to maybe be able to help you in that divisional round game in a couple of weeks. But I saw a lot of the defenders out there. Jadeveon Clowney got a sack, and it was a big sack for him. Good for him. He had a hell of a season quietly. He posted 9 sacks this season. That's got to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a career high for him. I don't think he's ever had double-digit sacks in his career. So if he's got 9 this year, that's got to be one of his highest totals of his career. He hasn't missed a game this season. Good for Jadeveon Clowney. Like this is almost like a revival of sorts for him. Not that he's been in the tank, but he never stays healthy. Tennessee wanted their money back after his 1 year there. The Browns were cool with him, but he always missed time with them. He's played in a full season, didn't miss a single game, was ultra productive off the edge for the Ravens. Good for him. And he made another $750K today with that sack. So good for him. I saw Patrick Queen out on the field. So they had some guys out there, but ultimately they did not get it done. And nobody cares. All right. So 17-10, Steelers win the game, go to 10-7. Now they await tomorrow's outcomes in 2 ball games in particular. Jacksonville, Tennessee. A Jags loss means that the winner tonight, the Houston Texans, would then clinch the AFC South, and the Jags would be out of the playoffs altogether, and the Steelers would move into that 7th spot officially. Also, they could get in via, and this is the easiest path. Well, it doesn't matter. Either one is good for them. Bills loss to the Dolphins. They got to wait all the way to Sunday night for that. So the Steelers will have 2 cracks. If they don't get it done during the day on Sunday, they still have a shot that night. So the Steelers will have all day. If they get it done during the day and the Jags lose, then they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to sweat it out on Sunday Night Football. But if they don't get it done during the day games, they still have a nightcapper that gives them hope. So we'll see what happens there. But we transition over to the nightcap, and I'm always a huge fan of pseudo playoff games. This was a playoff game, essentially. Win and you're in. You survive and advance. If you win, lose, and you go home. So this was, in effect, a playoff game, right? The first playoff game that we will see all season long as we get ready to kick off the postseason here next week. But AFC South, 2 teams that we did not think were going to be where they were tonight. Like, I was talking to my buddy on the phone, and he said, what you got? What you think about tonight? And I'm like, bro, if either one of these teams, it really doesn't matter. You've had a successful season. Your season is a success. You got a first-year head coach for both of these teams. You had first-year quarterbacks for both of these teams. However, the Colts lost their quarterback, and their backup came in and kind of went on this, fairy tale type of ride, because this was like Gardner Minshew sitting on that cooler at the end of this game in disbelief kind of spoke volumes, because you got to look at it from his perspective. He's not the starter in Indy, and he may not get another opportunity to do this again. He's a backup quarterback now in this league. And again, I think they've got a guy that's going to be injured often in Anthony Richardson. So he's going to play, but this will never be his team, right? This was his team this year. There was nobody over his shoulder. He didn't have to worry about, hey, am I going to be out of here in 2 weeks? This was his team, and this was his opportunity. And they didn't get done, and he didn't make a great throw there at the end, but Goodson could have caught that football. We'll talk about that in a second. But the fact that these two teams were even in this position at 9-7 speaks volumes to the jobs that both organizations, starts at the top, talked a lot of shit about Jim Irsay over this offseason, but made a great hire in Shane Steichen. And we've seen the job that he's done, and we've seen the job, and that we talked a lot of shit about the Texans and how dysfunctional they've been. 3 coaches in 3 years, all kinds of craziness going on. How they did David Culley, how they did Lovie Smith, but they got it right here with DeMeco Ryans. And so it's a success no matter what. But somebody's going to go home happy. Someone's going to go home disappointed in how the season ended. And so kudos to both teams for even being in this position, first and foremost. But I was telling my buddy, I got something against Indy. And I'm like, it's not super personal. They beat me up this year in winners and losers. When I didn't pick them, they won. When I did pick them, they lose. And so we had a hate relationship. However, I told him, I think this is a little bit more deep-rooted than I wanted to admit. I said, I think I'm low-key jealous of Indianapolis because they're doing with Gardner Minshew what I wanted to do with Taylor Heineke that I never could. Like, they got a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. They win this game, and Gardner Minshew's magical season doesn't end when the regular season ends. He gets to play a playoff game. And we saw Heineke play a playoff game, but that wasn't a year-long magic carpet ride. This has been a year-long magic carpet ride for Gardner Minshew. We've seen him dancing in the locker room. We've seen the videos. He was having fun. It reminded me so much of Heineke, but they were a lot closer than we ever came with Taylor Heineke as the quarterback of our team. So I think I was low-key jealous. Like, damn, they figured the shit out. They got the recipe. And they're actually going to make a meal that is edible that is going to get them to the postseason. I said, but you have Gardner Minshew. You can't make it to the playoffs with Gardner Minshew, man. Nobody wants to see that. Give me C.J. Stroud. Give me the young fella. So I was hoping that the Texans would get it done, and I expected them to, but I wasn't sure. And let's start with the Texans. So obviously they pull it out 23-17 and punch their ticket to the postseason. And now they await the outcome of the Jaguars game to see if they'll be the 6th seed in the AFC playoffs or if they'll be the 4 seed in the AFC playoffs. So we'll find out, right? Either way, it's going to be really interesting with this Texans team because whether they're playing the Browns or they're playing the Chiefs, they're capable of beating both of those teams, right? And you saw why tonight. For starters, C.J. Stroud is legit. And this game didn't solidify that. We already knew he was it. From what he's done this season, the body of work that he's put forth, we already knew he was him, or he is him already for the Texans. That's their guy. They found their guy. The search is over now. Let's build around, C.J. Stroud. Let's build around 7. But this was his first big-time game in the league. He's had big-time moments. First primetime game, first playoff. This was a playoff game. Call it what it was. It's a playoff game. And the first play of the game, he comes out. Any jitters, any nerves. And I told my boy, we were on the phone at the beginning of this game. And I said, he's back home. Like he never left. We saw what he did to the Georgia Bulldogs in the, I want to say that game was in Indianapolis, that bowl game. I could be wrong about that. But the Big Ten championship is always in Indianapolis, and he's had some big-time games there as well. The bottom line is Ohio State is a hop, skip, and a jump from Indy, and I'm like, he's back home. This is nothing for him. Very comfortable. Played a ton of games at that stadium already before getting to the NFL. And first play of the game, 75-yard strike, boom, to Nico Collins. And Nico had himself a whale of a ball game. I don't know if he eclipsed 200. I think he might have got the 2 bills tonight. But if he didn't, he was damn close, because at one point it was 170, and then he had another big catch with the horse collar down to like the 7-yard line. So if he wasn't at 2 bills, his ass was knocking on that door, beating that bitch down, right? 197, 198, somewhere in that neighborhood. But here's the thing about Nico before we go in on CJ Stroud. A lot of people forget just how good he was and highly sought after coming out of high school. Like, he was one of the receivers that a lot of college programs wanted badly. He was one of the best gets for Michigan in that cycle. Georgia, Alabama, all of those schools wanted him, and he chose Michigan. And now he had a disappointing career at Michigan. I don't think he ever lived up to the hype. A lot of that had to do with they didn't have great quarterbacks when he was there. But nonetheless, Nico Collins can play. I was telling my boys, like, so who's the Texas #1 receiver next year? Because y'all know how I feel about Tank Dell. Y'all know I wanted him for my team. Right? Thought he was one of the best receivers in last year's draft. I said, I love Tank, but Nico's their #1, bro. Like, Nico's that dude. And he showed you again tonight. Nico had like 3-4 games this year where he went slam off. And tonight was one of them. In the biggest game of the season, Nico Collins went slam off. And I love it because it was on a big stage so people know who 12 is. But back to CJ Stroud. He comes out, throws the dime on the first play of the game. And I told you, what separates the really good quarterbacks from the great quarterbacks in this league, one is consistency. That's the #1 thing. Is you can get a really good performance from a good quarterback, but can you do it over and over again? Can you stack these performances on top of each other? The great ones in the league do it every week, just about, right? The next thing is turnovers. The great quarterbacks in the league, they don't turn it over a ton usually. All right. Now you get some of these gunslingers, and Mahomes will turn the bitch over and not care, because you'll take that because they're going to be plays. Josh Allen will turn the bitch over. Why? Because he's going to make some plays too. You'll take that. But when you look at the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses, the Peyton Mannings, those dudes kept the interception numbers down. Right? They're not turning that shit over a ton. Right? You're not going to get a bunch of interceptions thrown, because they're not going to put their team in a tough spot. And then the next thing is, and I think this is one of the most underrated qualities of a big-time quarterback, is when you get an opportunity to hit the deep ball, and I talk about this all the time, the best ones in the league don't miss consistently. They hit those deep balls because you don't get those shots often. They worked on that. That was the first play of the game, so they were working that play all week. Like, yo, if we get the look, you got to hit this. We've been working this, bro. And damn sure enough, they got the look. He got the opportunity, and he did not miss a dime. Touchdown. Set the tone, right? But he made other plays. That throw where he's falling backwards, eludes pressure, backpedals, looks like he's throwing it away, and Nico goes and dives and catches it on a 1st and 20. Are you kidding me? I like his decision-making. I like his decisiveness. Dalton Schultz made a great catch on the third down. Like Troy Aikman said, hey, he made that a lot harder than it needed to be. He did, but it was quick. It was decisive. Even on 2nd and 20. You know, one of the things people used to, oh, Kirk Cousins is a stat patter, right? No, he's decisive. So Kirk would take the check down. But if you take the check down in timing and rhythm of the play before the defense is able to come up and collapse, as they're getting depth and you get it to that check down, there's 10 to 12 yards of space. If you get it there quick enough, he gets it to Dalton Schultz on a 2nd and 20, makes a guy miss, gets up the field, and he gets 17 and makes it 3rd and 3. That's huge. His decision-making, boop, 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 boop. It's quick. It's out of his hands quick. He's not taking sacks. He's not making those mistakes, you know. And when he got to eat a sack, he'll eat a sack. That's how you keep the interception numbers low. This man is going to have the best touchdown to interception ratio in the entire league this year. It's never been done by a rookie quarterback. Why? Because rookies usually struggle with that concept of getting the ball out of your hands and not turning it over and not playing hero ball. Rookies struggle with that because where they came from, they were the man and they made all the plays. So it's hard to turn that off in your brain when you get to the NFL level and realize you're not playing Rutgers anymore. You're not playing Vandy. They're real athletes on the other side of the field. All right. And those boys get paid. So he came in and he's performing like an 8-year vet out of the gate. And that's, I think, the thing that I admire the most about CJ Stroud. And another thing that I love, I didn't know this about him coming out, but this kid is humble. He's selfless, and he's a leader. And those are qualities and intangibles that you can't coach. That's what I want for my quarterback, which is why I told you I'm a little iffy on Caleb Williams. And I'm not telling you Caleb Williams isn't a leader. And I'm not telling you Caleb Williams isn't humble. He doesn't appear to be humble. I was talking to my buddy before this game, and I said, CJ Stroud is a rare breed because most people don't understand that this new breed of athlete, they've been coddled their entire life. It's a new day and age. And now that you put NIL deals on top of that, the one carrot you could dangle in front of a young player coming out of college was, hey, you broke. Got to get your bread up. Right? This is your driving force to get you to go to the league. These boys are getting paid millions of dollars depending on how good you are. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't have to come to the NFL. That brother's making probably $3-4 million at Ohio State right now. Their pockets are fatter than NFL vets right now. These boys are eating good. I already told y'all the joke about Caleb Williams on IG getting into his red Lambo, right? And he said, what did Lightning McQueen say? And he looks into the camera and says, ka-chow, and he slams the Lambo door and drives off. Like, these boys are getting bread. Okay? So they don't have to be humble. Don't got to be humble. They come in here with a sense of entitlement, not CJ Stroud. He's built different. They got themselves a real one in Houston. And now the play matches up with the person, and it's the perfect storm. And when they needed him in the second half, it was a rough second half. But when they needed him the most on that drive that netted them that go-ahead score, the game-winning touchdown, he was flawless. He was flawless. I love the addition of Motor Singletary. He's been really good for them this year. I love the role. I didn't think he got enough opportunities in Buffalo. And so my buddy asked me, what happened to the running back that they had last year that was a rookie? I said, you talking about Damian Pierce. I said, Motor Singletary came over. He got hurt early in the season. Motor Singletary took over, and they was like, bro, we just going to run with him. And they put him on kickoffs. He ran a kickoff back for a touchdown like 2-3 weeks ago. But I'm like, they rolling with the hot hand, and Motor Singletary has been outstanding this year. Dalton Schultz has been a great get And again, they didn't spend a ton of money. What is that? 1 year, $4, $5, $6 million deal he signed, whatever it was. Like, they're making some shrewd moves over there, right? Schultz has been a great addition. Singletary's been a great addition. Collins is playing well. Noah Brown was a great addition this year. Tank Dell was an excellent draft pick. And you see what they've been able to do, but it's all being tied together by Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator. He's doing a magnificent job. I actually thought both play callers did a splendid job tonight, and we'll get to the Colts and what they did in this game in particular. But you got to credit the Texas defense. They got shredded on the ground tonight. Shredded, okay? Like some damn cheese, right? Shredded. But when they had to get the stops down the stretch, they got the stops. They made the plays. They didn't give up that third down and whatever run for the first down. They made it a 4th and 1, which forced them to have to throw the football, which forced Gardner Minshew to have to make a play, and he didn't. Still should have been caught, but that wasn't a good ball. A good ball, he might score. So when the play had to be made, they made them defensively. And that's, honestly, if you've been watching the Texans all season long, that's been their MO. Look at how many close games they've won at the end. Whether it's their defense, like the Arizona game, making a stop at the end when they had to, or the Cincinnati game, which the offense had to bail them out, but then the defense got the pick at the end to secure it, right? Whether it's the defense bailing them out at the end of a game or the offense, like the Tampa Bay game, when the defense was awful and the offense had to bail them out with the touchdown at the end. This is who they've been this season. They found ways to win games at the end, whether it's their defense or their offense. Both sides have taken turns. Tonight, it was the defense's turn to get the play, get the stop. And again, Colts did aid in a bet, right? All right. But still, they got the stops when they needed to. And there are pieces of that defense that I'm just madly in love with. Y'all know how much I love Jalen Petrie coming out of Baylor, and how much I thought he would be a perfect fit for Washington's defense. Watching him fly around that line of scrimmage just brings tears to my eyes, right? My shit's well up a little bit. I was a huge Derek Stingley. I told y'all he's better than Sauce Gardner. I told y'all that in that draft. Now, it hasn't necessarily played that way out in the league to this point, but I'm still riding with Derek Stingley Jr. When he's healthy, to me, he's still better than Sauce Gardner. That's my opinion, okay? So that's another dog you got on that defense. Will Anderson has been everything that they wanted, the number 2 overall pick or whatever they ended up. They didn't draft him to. They drafted Stroud. They traded back up, I think, into the top 5 or whatever they did to get him. He's been everything that they wanted him to be. He played through a high ankle sprain tonight, right? He's been effective this season. And it's a really solid, well-constructed. I'm a big Jonathan Grenard fan. I said in the offseason, he's one of the few guys I'd be willing to throw a little bit of money to. He was not healthy. He did not play in this game, but he's got 12.5 sacks this year. So, that Texans defense has been really good this year. And D'Amico Ryans is doing a hell of a job. And I felt bad for Kamiri Fairbairn because they kept putting the camera on him. When you F up, they're going to find you. They're going to find you. And he looked like he was feeling the weight of that shit because you don't want to be that guy. Like, Goodson's not sleeping tonight. You know that, right? Goodson's not sleeping tonight. He's not sleeping well at all tonight. That's going to haunt him for the next 24 to 36 hours. He's not sleeping at all tonight. Gardner Minshew ain't going to sleep well tonight. He's just going to keep thinking about that miss, right? And he missed a couple of throws in this game. The one to Mo Alley Cox down the sidelines. Like, those, you want to win? That's why Gardner Minshew is the backup. That's what I'm talking about right there. Like, CJ missed 1-2 down the sidelines, right? But he ain't going to miss too often. Minshew was missing those. He had 2 opportunities down the field. He missed both of them. And then you missed the layup right there. Now, again, his guy should have caught that ball. Goodson should have caught that ball because CJ wasn't perfect all night. That 3rd and 3 after the 17-yard completion to Schultz runs a quick out. It's easy money, and it's behind him and low, and Schultz has to reach back and catch it. But he made the catch, right? Make your quarterback right. I talk about that all the time. Make your quarterback right. Goodson could have made Gardner Minshew right on that play, but he didn't. But credit the Texans. This is who they've been all season long. They found ways to win despite whatever the circumstances have been. They found ways to win, and they did it again when it mattered the most, and they're going to the playoffs at 10-7. Congratulations to DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud in their first years with the Texans, getting it done in the fashion that they have. And now they wait to see if they are AFC South champions or if they're going to be wild card participants. Whatever the case may be, they're going to the playoffs. They're playing bonus football, and I can't wait to see what they do in their first round game. For the Colts, it's a bittersweet end to your season. Obviously, to even be in this position, as I mentioned at the top of the show, for them, incredible. It's a hell of a run. And I think Eagles fans got a taste tonight. If they've been paying attention, maybe they haven't. Maybe they're too busy arguing with Cowboys fans over frivolous shit. Neither one of them are going anywhere anyway, right? However, you saw Shane Steichen commit to the run, something that the Eagles have failed to do this season, unless they're running a quarterback draw, right? Shane Steichen ran that bitch down the Texans' throat. And some of that might have been, I'm protecting Gardner Minshew because he's Gardner Minshew. But some of it was they can't stop it. And if they can't stop it, I'm going to keep giving it to him. Jonathan Taylor at one point was averaging 9.2 yards a carry. What? And this wasn't, off of 9 runs. This was 16 runs for 145 yards, 9.2 yards a carry. The first half, he was averaging 6 a pop. Then he broke the big one in the third quarter that got him to 9 a pop. So he was kicking their ass. And he just kept feeding them. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Eric Bieniemy, you taking notes or what? Too late for that shit. So I was impressed with his play calling because Shane Steichen is one of those coaches that likes to throw the football. Like most young coordinators in the game, that he wants to throw the football. That's why you got to love anybody that comes from the Shanahan tree because they're going to run that bitch. Bobby Slowick is going to run that bitch. All right. Mike Daniel is going to run that bitch. Sean McVay is going to run that bitch because everything that they want to do is set up off the ability to run the football. The play action fake works when you run the football. You get chunk plays out of play action fake when you run the football and make the defense have to honestly play run. And Shane Steichen understands that. And, one of the things that kind of got lost in this season for Indianapolis, I think a lot of credit has been given to Gardner Minshew, rightfully so. A lot of credit has been given to Shane Steichen, rightfully so. A lot of credit has been given to their defensive coordinator. Why am I blanking on his name? Shucks, I can't think of his damn name. But their offensive line had a resurgence this year. They struggled last year. My guy, Q-Dog, Quentin Nelson, that's my guy, right? He struggled last year. That line as a whole struggled last season. They were not the group that we had come to know and love in Indy. They're back. They on some Mortimer shit, right? And Randolph shit. Mortimer, I'm not talking to you, Randolph. Look, we're back. That offensive line is back. They were opening up some massive holes tonight and have been all season. Remember, Jonathan Taylor's been banged up most of this season. Their best running back this year hasn't been Jonathan Taylor. It's been Zach Moss. So it really hasn't mattered who the hell was running the football behind that offensive line. They've been getting the shit done. And they were running that bitch tonight. Oh, were they ever? But hats off to Shane Steichen for just saying, okay, stop it. The defense gave some stuff up early, obviously, and I don't think that's Gus Bradley. That's the name of the defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. I thought there was a lot more meat left on the bone for the Texans in the first half. It could have been a lot worse because, as we saw, they had like 40-something yards of total offense in the first half. They were struggling. Gardner Minshew had 40-something yards of passing yards in the first half. He was struggling. Jonathan Taylor had 80-something yards rushing. So they had probably like 130, some odd yards of total offense, but they hadn't converted a third down. As we saw, they didn't convert a third down until that one where it was kind of controversial whether he made it or not. They gave him the first down. They didn't convert. They were 0 of 8 on third downs until they converted, their second to last third down. They probably ended up, if I had to guess, 1 of 10 on the night because they had to go for it on fourth down. So they struggled mightily in the first half. They really didn't get anything going. And the Texans, they missed some opportunities. They could, if not for a couple of false starts by Laramie Tunzel and things of that nature, they could have, because they were going for it on fourth down one time, and then they had to, go ahead and punt. This thing could have been a lot worse. Their defense hung in there, though. And in the second half, they played their asses off, and they gave themselves a chance. And it's unfortunate that when they needed their defense the most, they had a 2nd and 20. They had a 1st and 20. Gus Bradley dialed up a beautiful blitz, got you a sack. They got a hands to the face penalty. You got everything you needed to get off the field, and you couldn't do it on that drive. And C.J. Stroud took them boys right down the field and got them into the end zone. And I think that's where you see to me, the biggest, like the Colts, their roster is fascinating because on paper, they shouldn't win 9 games, not with the roster that they have. You look at their players and you go, come on, bro. I'm not afraid of these dudes. They got a couple of players like Michael Pittman Jr. is nice. I like the kid Josh Downs. He set a Colts rookie record for most receptions in a season by a rookie. He's going to be really good for them. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is a stud, but their tight ends leave a little bit to be desired. I mean, I like Kyler Granson. He's all right. Mo Alley Cox is cool, right? But they don't scare anybody. The defense, they got DeForest Buckner, and that's it. I mean, I actually like the Syracuse linebacker, 44. I can't think of his name right now. I can see his face, but he's actually turned into a much better pro than I thought he would coming out of college. But their secondary, it's young. It's a bunch of guys that you wouldn't expect you be able to win consistently with. They got injuries, but it's a lot. It's the blind leading the blind back there, to be honest with you. I'm a Kenny Moore fan. Y'all know that. But there's not a lot that gets you excited on that defense, and yet they're battling. So you got to give them credit, that coaching staff, for getting the most out of what they're putting on the field, because I don't know if the product that they're actually putting on the field in terms of the players, it's all that great. So that's a testament to the coaching staff, to be honest with you. EJ Speed is cool, but again, like, these aren't names that move the needle for me. But when it's all said and done, those boys play ball, and they had a chance. And they just couldn't make the plays when they were there to be made on defense or on offense. And Kamiri Fairbairn's miss left that door open for their ass to win this game, and they just needed to convert. I don't know if I loved the way that they were managing the clock at the end. For one, I would not have taken that timeout prior to that fourth down, just because I knew that in order for me to have a shot, should I not convert this fourth down, I'm going to need all 3 of my timeouts. So I thought that was a mistake. Clearly, you want your best play, and it was, and he was open. And so, everything but the execution turned out to be really good. But in that instance, you got to be playing for both sides, right? Like, I want your best play, but you can get that out into your quarterback's helmet within the time allotted. They ran up to the line of scrimmage to try to draw them off sides. Instead of calling that play that they ran, they could have called that same play, ran it, and if it didn't work like it didn't, you still would have had 3 timeouts, and you would have forced them. They wouldn't have been able to do that safety shit that they just did, right? Which that punter needs to waste all of the time. Like, bro, it was a second left. Don't run like a little bitch straight to the corner of the end zone and wait to get zigzag and run it. Make sure that you run the damn time out, bro. Seriously, like that 1 second, that shit should not have happened. But I digress. They wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have had to punch you the football. Because you would have had every bit of 47 seconds or so left. With no timeouts, of course, but you still would have had a shot. And you would have had, they would have punched you the ball, and you probably would have had some solid field position because they were going to be backed up. So, and they might have got desperate and tried to throw it. They might have had an incompletion, knowing that you had all your timeouts. They might have went for the jugular vein, had an incompletion, and you might have been able to keep one of your timeouts in your back pocket. But by calling that timeout, they knew that's 3 runs, bro. And that's going to have us punting the ball back to them if we have to punt with less than 10 seconds left. They can't do shit with that other than a Hail Mary, and we're going to take that off the table. That was really smart, too. Somebody got in D'Amico Ryan's ear and said, hey, yo, coach, we're not punting this shit to them. Because they didn't even have anybody back there. They were going to try to sell out to block it. So if you get the punt off and nobody's back there, it's going to waste the rest of the time. But the only way you can lose this game is if they block the punt. That's the only way you can lose the game. So I'm not even going to give them that opportunity. That was smart. Because I wasn't even thinking about it until they did it. And I was like, that's some smart ass thinking. That's why you get paid the big bucks. Somebody on that sideline went to D'Amico Ryan's and said, hey, and it had to be the special teams coordinator. Say, hey, only way we lose in this game is if the punt gets blocked. So we just need to run out of clock. And that punter's got to run that shit out. Period. End of discussion. But I digress. Really good game. That was very entertaining. I'm not used to saying that about an AFC South game. You know how I am about the AFC South. And you know how the NFL is about the AFC South. And I can tell you this right now. Whomever wins the division usually is going to be in that first slot, that 4:30 slot to kick off the playoffs. They always put their worst product on at that time. Last year, because Trevor Lawrence, was upstart young, and Justin Herbert, same thing. They wanted that game to be on that Saturday night spot. And it turned out to be a dandy, right? That massive comeback by the Jags. I surmise that no matter what happens, whomever wins this division, that Browns and AFC South winner, that game will be first in Wild Card Weekend. I'll bet any amount of money you want to bet. That'll be the first game, 4:30. Jags, Texans, whomever wins that division, hosting the Cleveland Browns will be the first game come Wild Card Weekend at 4:30 on Saturday. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. You guys know how this works. If you want your comment to be read on the air, use the hashtag LouieTLive. We'll get to it time permitting. But if you want to ensure that your comment is read, super chats are the best way to do that. So Ben Hanniger, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you to get us started. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, hey Colts, this is karma coming to collect. I'm over that, man. Had Carson Wentz still been here, I would, and yeah, because we were all kinds of salty last year. We were in our feelings. I think I was a little bit jealous. I think I told my buddy, low key, I think this is a little bit more deeper rooted in the fact that they're doing something that we weren't able to do. And just like our season ended in the regular season, so did theirs. So I don't feel bad. But they got a lot further along with their situation, with their backup, having fun than we did, right? Jonathan Hankey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Jonathan, writes, well, Lou, it was fun while it lasted. Yeah, I've been there. Now, that's what I was kind of alluding to. These types of seasons are fun. The ones that you don't see coming are the best. Because when you're supposed to be good, there's a level of expectation that applies pressure to you that isn't there in a season where you're just playing with house money. Those years when you had Peyton Manning, and you had Dallas Clark, and you had Joseph Addai or Edgerrin James, and you had Marvin Harrison and Reginald Wayne, and you had Freeney and Mathis off the edge and Bob Sanders. You were supposed to win. So there was extra added pressure. Every week you were supposed to go out there and win. When you show up and your quarterback's Gardner Minshew, there is no pressure. First year head coach, you're supposed to suck this year. Yeah, there's no pressure. And as the wins continue to stack up and you look up and you're like, damn, we can make the playoffs. This shit is fun. I know what you're going through, what kind of a season you just had. It sucks when you don't make it to the finish line, though. It sucks when you don't make it to the finish line, but it's a hell of a race, and you had a lot of fun. Good game, Texans. Loving this team. The future looks bright. I love your coaching staff. And the beauty of it is, because you did it the right way, you got an offensive-minded head coach. So he's calling the play, so you don't have to worry about losing your offensive play caller. Don't nobody want Gus Bradley ass. He'll be the new Steve Spagnuolo in Kansas City, where he's already been hired as a head coach in this league. And so don't nobody want him. You ain't got to worry about nobody poaching your defensive coordinator. So you got a little conglomerate there. Now you can just work. Now you can just build. It's a good spot to be in. And my buddy was like, well, we know about both of these teams' quarterbacks. I'm like, oh, don't speak for me. I know about CJ Stroud. I don't know shit about Mr. Richardson yet. Anthony Richardson has to show me more. I like what I saw, but what kind of a sample size is that? What we get? 4 games? And how many of those games did he actually finish? What, 2? Maybe 3? He definitely didn't finish all 4 of them. He probably only finished like 2 of them. So I need to see more of this kid before I can declare him this or that. But I like what I saw. And your head coach is the perfect, and that's why I said Anthony Richardson. And I told anybody that would listen, the Colts are going to go after Anthony Richardson because Shane Steichen did wonders with Jalen Hurts. Anthony Richardson should technically be Jalen Hurts on steroids, except he's not as physically built as Jalen Hurts. He's got a much stronger arm. He's a better passer. I think he has a chance to be. I can't say that he is. He has a chance to be a better passer. He's got all the tools to be a better passer. Physically, I don't know if he's going to hold up in the NFL. That's what worries me about him. They tried to bill him as Cam Newton. Oh, he's 6'3", 6'4", 200, and no. He ain't Cam Newton. And he showed that this year with the shoulder injury. I'm worried about his long-term health, but there's a lot to be excited about, Jonathan. A lot to be excited about. My guy, Jonathan. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you. Jonathan Hankey writes, I don't blame Steichen to throw on 4th and 1, but why not throw it to JT Downs or Pittman? I mean, you can second guess all of that. He was open, man. Like, only thing, he can't go up and walk the ball to the running back. The only thing I would say is in that situation, and I think it highlights the fact that you just don't have an elite pass catching back. And all of those dudes that you got on that team, none of them are elite. Because why take Jonathan Taylor out? Because he's not a great receiver, right? But what would have been nice is instead of inserting a dude that only has 6 catches on the year and Goodson into the game, why not put Josh Downs back there instead? Right? They were going to play it the same way. It was still man-to-man coverage. That safety that was playing that running back, it might be a corner now. They might still keep it safe. He still was going to go over the route that was in front of him, which led to him being so wide open. They were going to play it the same way either way. Why not put Josh Downs back there instead? But, I mean, we can sit here and second guess. He was open. It was a great play call, right? He dialed up a gem, got the coverage he wanted, got the look he wanted, and the execution just wasn't there. Ash, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, let's go, Texans. I want some playoff experience this season since we are so young. We do miss Tank. I want a receiver in the draft. Let CJ pick who he wants. Man, the future's so bright in Houston. It really, truly is. They'll have some decisions to make. I think the first decision you have to make is you got to re-sign Dalton Schultz, right? Yeah, you got to bring him back because he's been, like Troy Aikman said, for a young quarterback, the tight end is probably the biggest safety blanket that you can give a young quarterback because he's right in the line of sight of a quarterback, right? So he's right over the middle of the field. It's the easiest throw to make. You need one of those dudes when you got a young quarterback. And Schultz has been a lifeline for him this season. And so I think that's one of the first things I would do. You're definitely going to miss Tank Dell. You know, he's so dynamic. But at the end of the day, I've actually been disappointed. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have expected a lot from John Mechie in his first year back from cancer, but I just thought he'd be more, right? He'd do more. He'd be a bigger part of this offense. He's damn near invisible every single game. But just looking at what you already have and what you have the ability to add to that, you're in a great spot, man. You're going to get some playoff experience, as you mentioned. That shit is invaluable. That is priceless. Getting your young quarterback a taste of the postseason. Man, must be nice. Must be nice. Jonathan Hankey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, also, I will never forgive the refs during the Browns games. Yeah, and I remember saying to myself at the time, it's not going to matter. You're not going to the playoffs anyway. You missed the playoffs by a damn game, and they botched that whole situation. You should have won that game, and you should be in the playoffs. And that's the thing that sucks, because I literally just did this same thing you're doing right now. I did this same exact thing last year. When you miss the playoffs by a game, you start looking back at the season and all the missed opportunities. We were killing the refs as a Commanders fan for the Giants fiasco. Terry McLaurin asking the official, am I good? Him telling him yes. And as soon as the play happens, he throws his flag and says illegal formation, right? Killed any opportunity. The next play, our receiver has the defender on his back, like a backpack, like a parachute, and they don't call anything, right? I mean, it's egregious, right? You think about, the Minnesota game and how we blew that, and you think about the Tennessee game and how we blew that, and opportunities that were there that we just blew, right? But it always balances itself out. You probably had no business beating Baltimore, right? I mean, we could go back and forth. Normally in a season, it usually balances itself out, because there were probably 2 or 3 games in there that you go, yeah, we probably shouldn't have won that game, but you did. And that's what happens in the course of a season. But yeah, they screwed you. They screwed you in that game for sure. But you also got to ask yourself, how the hell did we give up 40, whatever, it was 39, 41, whatever the score was, however many, how the hell did we give up that many points to PJ Walker? You got to ask yourself that. And I knew there were some turnovers in that game and all kinds of crazy shit happened. Still, PJ Walker shouldn't be able to put them in a position to have that many points. Zoe Life, No Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Steichen made it work with Herbert, Hurts, Richardson, and Minshew, who are all different. Young coaches are adaptable, but I need the ones with identity. And that's why you got to love Shane Steichen, because so first of all, I love coaches who are able to, like you said, adapt and adjust, right? They're not rigid and fixed in how they want to do things. I'm going to do things that are going to give us the best chance to win. And the best coaches are the ones that understand that. And Shane Steichen understands, hey, this week we might have to throw it 47 times to win. And you got to be okay with that. The next week, you might be playing a team with the second worst run defense in football. Hey, we running this bitch 47 times today. Anybody got any objections? No? All right, well, let's go pound the rock. Like, literally, that's what they did tonight. Oh, y'all can't stop the run? Well, we about to feed y'all a heavy dose. Remember that Steelers game a couple Saturdays ago when the Steelers were struggling to stop the run? They had an 8-minute possession or something like that. All runs. Walked it down the field on those boys. And that's some hard shit to stomach when the other team is gutting you and ain't a damn thing you can do about it, and the coordinator or the play caller, rather, ain't stopping. Because too often in today's NFL, even when the run's working, these young coordinators can't help themselves. I got to mix a run. I got to mix the pass in here. Right? I got to throw it. All these runs, I got to use play action fake. Some of these dudes like, nah, I'll use play action fake later. But right now, the run's working. I'm going to keep pounding that bitch. And, yeah, Shane Steichen, I love it. I love it. I'll just say that. Kimura, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I'm sorry, Lou. I don't tune in as much when we ask. It's okay. You're not the only person who does that, right? It's tough. It's tough. Your content is different. Literally have me What does that stand for? ROFL. I've seen that a couple of times. You know I'm old. Y'all gotta explain some of these acronyms to me. At times, he said, I don't want to even discuss Washington at this time. Let's just enjoy this good football. You know, that's what I do every year this time of the year, because usually we're not any good this time of the year, and we're not playing at this time of the year. So I'm always going to enjoy good football. I'm a football fan first. I always tell people that. I mean, some people make fun of me for that. That's fine. But I love football, period. And I understand that once we get to February and they play that last game, now all we'll be doing is talking about football, because we won't actually see it on a television. Now, if you get into what is it now? The United Football League now, the UFL. If you get into that, knock yourself out. But, you know, I'll just be waiting until August rolls around, until we get some preseason ball, right? No need to apologize, Kimura. Just glad that you still supporting, man. That's all that matters. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Kimura, who writes, my man CJ different, changing the narrative about OSU quarterbacks. That's funny you brought that up, because I told my boy on the phone when we were watching the beginning of this game after he threw that dime for the touchdown to Nico Collins. I said, man, Ohio State finally got them one. They finally now, they ain't got shit there right now. Kyle McCord just transferred, you know, and I didn't think he was that damn good anyway. And so they don't have shit right now. We'll see what happens with the next guy that comes in there. But he definitely is going to help try to change that narrative, because we all know what the narrative has been. So he's a beast, and he's definitely changing the narrative for sure. Zoe Life, No Life, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, do you think the new coaching pool is the best we've seen? I don't know about that. You know, we'll see. I can tell you this. It's an exciting crop of coaches, young coaches to choose from. And there'll be some veteran options that may fit other organizations like Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick potentially. So I think this is one of the better groups we've seen. But I'll just say exciting is the word that I'll use. I won't say it's the best. And although it may be, I mean, we got some big time names. I just talked about Belichick's going to probably be available here, and Harbaugh's probably coming back from the collegiate ranks. And so these are some big names, right? But the young crop is interesting, because it's, other than Slowick, a lot of the names are guys that have cut their teeth long enough that you know what their body of work looks like. So you kind of got a feel for what they're going to bring to the table. And even a guy like Slowick, after seeing what Mike McDaniel was able to do, and seeing what, you know, some of these other coaches that didn't have a ton of experience being play callers were able to jump into the saddle and do, he's going to get an opportunity potentially this year. If he's great in the interview and he blows somebody away, Bobby Slowick's probably going to be coaching a team next year as a head coach. So in between Slowick and Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, and I mean, there's so many guys that have established themselves as names to look out for this year. It's a good group. It's a really good group, for sure. Barry Curtis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Barry Curtis writes, watched a lot of Caleb recently. When you combine touch, accuracy, power, and arm angles, he might have the best arm talent I've ever seen. We are blessed. Well, you say that like he's already on our team or something. Like, you don't know what the Bears are going to do. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Washington could win. The Patriots could lose. Washington could lose, and the Patriots could lose, but the Patriots could end up with the worst strength of schedule, and thus getting the pick. We could end up with the same strength of schedule, and it's been explained to me, if we both end up with the exact identical strength of schedule, then it goes to a tiebreaker that won't benefit us head to head. And in this particular case, we beat them. So they would get the pick because we beat them. So we're not out of the woods yet, man. Now, even if you fall back to say 3, because if you lose, you're not getting any worse than 3. Arizona's not going to catch up to you. So you can't fall any worse than 3. Even if you're at 3, you could still trade up to 1. You're not that far back. If your package for Chicago is better, if they're thinking about moving off of 1, you still can get to 1. But I've made this abundantly clear. If you want Caleb Williams, you're going to have to draft him first overall. There will be no scenario in which you get Caleb Williams at number 2 or 3 or whatever the hell some of these people are mocking. You know, I'm just telling you how this works. If Chicago's not taking Caleb Williams, they're not making a pick at 1. It doesn't make sense for them. If they are making a pick at 1, it's Caleb Williams. So either way, Caleb Williams is going 1 overall. Lang Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, did you see John Keim's tweet completely shooting Belichick to DC? He said, you mean shooting it down? He said it's not happening, 0 chance. I've already deduced that myself in reading Keim's article, listening to some of the tidbits that have been dropped from a number of beat reporters, including, I don't know if you saw this tweet today from Ben Standing, and I should have retweeted it when I saw it. I just made a mental note and kept scrolling, but I should have retweeted it so you guys could see it. But Ben Standing had a tweet that said Ronald Rivera told him that the next front office organizational setup is going to be with a GM and a head coach. It won't be coach-centric, right? To me, that means Belichick isn't coming here because wherever Belichick goes, he's going to have power. Like Belichick ain't going somewhere and going to have somebody telling him what he can and can't do. I'm not saying that he can't go somewhere where there's a GM, but don't think for 1 second that Belichick isn't going to have that kind of power. He's Bill Belichick. So wherever he's going to have a lot of say in everything going on with the football side of the operation. So while it may not technically be coach-centric, it's coach-centric if you hire Bill Belichick. We're moving away from that model. That's not how Josh Harris runs any of his organizations. So that's not how he's running this one. And to me, that eliminates Bill Belichick. So in my mind, I had already removed him from the equation anyway. You keep hearing our name and Bill Belichick come up. That's not to say that he doesn't want to talk to Bill Belichick. But I ultimately don't think that that's who's going to end up being here. That's my guess. Kimura, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kimura writes, don't sleep on the transfer from Kansas State now. Will Howard better than McCord? I saw that he chose Ohio State, and I was like, I'm supposed to be excited about that. Like that's supposed to move the needle. We're gonna see. I've seen Will Howard do some good things. I've seen Will Howard be mid. We'll see. Here's the thing. When you get a coach like Ryan Day, who's really good at what he does, usually that allows you to elevate the play of a quarterback like a Will Howard. So we'll see what that turns into for Ohio State. We'll see. I'm not sleeping on him. I'll tell you that much. Let's get to the comment section. We got about 10 minutes or so. So we'll knock out some of these. Derek B writes, Jonathan Taylor has been in the league too long to run out of bounds twice when you don't want to give the ball back to Stroud. I didn't have a problem with him running out of bounds late in the game. But the clock wasn't an issue. If they had converted that 4th and 1 with that catch, it would have been rendered irrelevant. Like that's an issue when you're leading and you're trying to burn clock and force them to use their timeouts. In that position, him running out of bounds might have actually been beneficial to them because when you are in that position and you're not using your timeouts, And they didn't want to use their timeouts because in case they failed. That's why I said I wouldn't have called that timeout, because them calling that timeout prior to the 4th and 1 was what effectively ended the game. Once they didn't convert, now you can't stop it 3 times, barring some kind of mistake by Houston, a penalty or something like that, or an injury on their part. It's the same thing that we watched in the playoff game between Washington and the Texas Longhorns. That game would have been over if the Washington Huskies running back doesn't get injured, stopping the clock, giving Texas an opportunity to possess the football and get down there. And that's what happened. He doesn't get hurt. It would have been the same situation we just saw with no time really left, punt the ball, and the game's over. So they would have needed something like that. So I don't think I really had an issue with him running out of bounds. Now, of course, you then said if they had scored. If they had scored, it wouldn't have mattered still, because the Texans would have had to use their timeouts, right? This, that, and the third, depending on what happened on that 4th and 1. If he catches that thing and scores, then different story. But even still with that, I don't think he would have scored. And if he doesn't score, now the Texans have to start using their timeout. I don't think that would have mattered in the grand scheme of things. Niners fan, right? That's heartbreaking for Goodson, but so proud of Miko and CJ Stroud as him. Top 10 QB already. I'm always a do it again type of guy before I start putting people in that kind of conversation. Clearly, off of his rookie season, he will be going into next year. If we're doing a quarterbacks ranking list, he'll probably be in the top 10. But I'm always a do it again. I did the same thing with Jalen Hurts. He did it again. I know the interceptions and turnovers are up and this, that, and the third. But they were 10-1 out of the gate again. And a lot of those wins, because their defense was so bad, was off the strength in the back of Jalen Hurts rallying this team, whether it was the Buffalo game or it was the Chiefs game. It was off the strength of Jalen Hurts delivering in the clutch. So for me, Jalen Hurts has done it again, and now we can have those conversations. Same thing with Brock Purdy, right? Like, that was a cool story at the end of last year. Do it again. He did it again this year. And again, that was a small sample size last year. Now we got a full body of work from Brock Purdy. He's legit. Now we can put him in that conversation. I want to see CJ do it again. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to do it again. But the numbers he posted this year, he's now one of 5 quarterbacks in NFL history to eclipse 4,000 yards passing in his rookie season. But the one that it strikes me and that I continue to go back to, touchdown to interception ratio and leading the league as a rookie. Never been done in the NFL before. There's a reason for that. Rookies make mistakes. Rookies don't come in throwing 30 some odd touchdowns and only having 6 interceptions. Rookies don't do that. CJ Stroud did. That's the thing that has blown me away. And that's what's got me thinking, I don't need another season to know that this guy is a top 10 quarterback, but my brain works and operates in that manner. But I'd agree with you right now. I'd just go ahead and put him in that, top 10, probably top 7. I mean, if we sat here and made a list, he'd probably be right in that 7-8 range is my guess right now. Obviously Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Jackson and Hurts. And you got to put Purdy in there, whether you like him or not. You call him a game man, you call him whatever the hell you want. I call him a winner. I put Stroud over Tua already. I'd put him over Dak already. Trying to make sure that I'm not forgetting anybody. This is why I hate making lists, because it's easy to leave somebody out that you shouldn't. But I mean, a healthy Aaron Rodgers, I would assume, is still really good, but I got to see it. And he's getting older, and he didn't play this year. So, but if he's healthy, we know Rodgers can still do it at a high level, right? So you'd have to put him in there in that mix somewhere. But I'll tell you what, man. it'd be hard to keep him out of the top 10 on any list that you're making of quarterbacks with what we've seen from him this season. That's for sure. Got another super here. This one is from Kimura. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kimura writes, I'm riding with Buffalo all day, same as you. I feel like Josh Allen takes down Lamar Jackson. I already told y'all that. And now that they have a chance at the 2 seed, should they win, they'll be the 2 seed in the AFC. That means they wouldn't have to see Baltimore until the AFC Championship game. That's the way it should be, because that's where I see them ending up. So beat Miami, get the 2 seed, then that would have you playing the Texans, right, as the 7 seed, and let's go to work. Let's have us some fun, right? And then after that, you'll probably be playing the winner of the 4 or 5. Either you'll be playing the depends on what happens, obviously, because the 1 seed gets the lowest remaining seed. If everything goes chalk, 4 beats 5, 3 beats 6, then you would be getting the 3 seed. More likely than not. But again, we'll see. Buffalo, I'm riding with the Bills. Y'all already know that, though. Chi-Town, the great. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. What is this? Hey, guys. Okay. What are we doing here? Huh? What are we doing here? Come on. Come on. Y'all are crazy. John Wynn says Deshaun Watson would have done better in Houston than CJ Stroud, but CJ Stroud finally done it, and Stroud should be in the MVP conversation. You say finally done it, like he finally got over the hump. That's debatable whether Deshaun Watson would have done better. I don't even think he's been playing all that well in Cleveland. Now, the numbers suggest that, and his win-loss record in Cleveland this year suggests that. But if you watch those games, there was that one game against Baltimore where you're like, hey, that's the shit you paid for. Other than that, a lot of it was his legs and, that sort of thing. But anyway, again, I digress. Kimura, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, how you feel about Michael Penix Jr. to Washington? I would be mixed about it because I am concerned about the injuries. And don't allow anybody to tell you that those don't matter. The man has been in college football for 6 years. Of the 6 seasons in college football, 4 of them have ended prematurely due to injury. And these aren't ho-hum injuries. These are major injuries. 2 ACL injuries, 2 to the shoulder, 1 to each shoulder, the throwing and the non-throwing. So we got uppers, we got lowers. I'm good, man. Like, that scares me. But the dude is a talent. There's no denying that. He's a talent. Let's see. Niners fan says Jags haven't clinched a playoff spot. Still need a win versus Tennessee. I think I made the mistake of saying they had already clinched their division, and I'm pretty sure I said that on my podcast, and I was wrong in saying that. They have to win that game to clinch. If they lose, they're out. With Pittsburgh having won already, so it's a massive game, which is why they're trying to push Trevor Lawrence to be healthy enough to play. Because they need him, because they need to win this game to make the playoffs. So I definitely made a mistake there on my podcast the other day. RHS Chess writes, folks, even remotely okay with Fields to DC for any picks upsets me. Do we not want greatness? Fields is trash and hasn't proven much. We need a solid pocket passer. I'd take JB over him. Saying that you would take JB, Jacoby Brissett, over him, that's crazy, right? That's crazy talk. Now, I'm not mad at you for not wanting Justin Fields. I don't want Justin Fields. I've already said that. However, to call him trash is a bit much. Okay. Me and my buddy were having that conversation earlier tonight, and we pretty much had the same sentiment, which is Justin Fields has proven, to me at least, and to him, that he's a viable starter in the NFL. He's proven that. He can start. You can win football games with Justin Fields. The problem is you can do better than Justin Fields. You can do better than that. There's a large enough sample size. There's 3 full seasons on the books. Now, granted, there have been some injuries in there mixed in, but there's enough. He started 37 games in his NFL career. So there's a large enough sample size. Granted, and again, you always got to take everything with a grain of salt. You always have to factor in the situation. He's had multiple coordinators in 3 years. He had no supporting cast his first, 2 years, really. This was the first year he's actually had a supporting cast, and he's playing better, right? So there's a number of things you have to factor in, but there's certain qualities that you see from him, and you like that shit's probably not gonna get that much better than what it is right now, So to call him trash is a bit much, but I think it's a bit extreme. But I get where you're coming from. I take him over Jacoby Brissett in a heartbeat. Now that's a crazy statement right there to me. RHS Chess writes, Harris loves the Ravens. He is guaranteed going after Ravens staff. What makes you think he's going to go after Cunningham? I'm not sure how I feel about another defensive-minded head coach. I don't want anything to do with the defensive-minded head coach. I like what Mike McDonald has done in Baltimore, and I don't know him as a leader. I don't know what he would do in that regard, and seeing that you can succeed with a defensive-minded guy. I just don't want to do the song and dance of what, like, somebody said earlier, man, the Texans' future is bright, and it is, but you may lose Bobby Slowick just like that. All this success C.J. Stroud is having with Bobby Slowick, who was the first person he went over and hugged after the incomplete pass? The first person he went over and hugged was Bobby Slowick. Right? Or it might have been after the touchdown possession when they came off of it. First person he hugged, Bobby Slowick. There's a synergy there, right? There's a relationship that has been fostered. And CJ Stroud can be so good in this offense. Guess what? Bobby Slowick killed it this year. Going to be interviewed. If he kills the interview, going to get hired. Now what? Oh, we can promote the quarterback's coach. Ask Buffalo how that worked out for him. That shit don't always work. Might be able to keep the same language, keep the same philosophical approach, but he ain't Bobby Slowick. And that's the dilemma, is you always going to find yourself chasing that next offensive coordinator when you're a defensive dude. At some point, you're going to strike out. One of these dudes ain't going to get it done for you. Whereas if you're the offensive guy, you don't have that issue. Now you just got to find a defensive coordinator. And you can always find a veteran defensive coordinator that don't nobody want to hire as a head coach. That's what the Bengals have been doing. I mean, that's what the Bengals got going on with Zach Taylor. Got him a defensive coordinator, Lou Amaruno. He may get a job this year. He may not. He's been killing it for the last 2-3 years. Still ain't got a job. The Chiefs got Steve Spagnuolo. They know he ain't getting a job. They straight, right? You can get you one of these defensive dudes that ain't going nowhere. No matter how good of a job he does, he ain't going nowhere. It's hard to find another offensive guy when you find some synchronicity. And that's why I don't want anything to do with a defensive-minded head coach. But look, if that's who they decide to hire, I've already told you, whatever they decide this offseason, I'm rolling with it. Whether I agree with it or not, I'm rolling with it. Kimura, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, this is a weird-ass year. I don't know who we taking. So much potential for a new GM. Fields is ass. Buckeye fam But how is greater than Fields? Let's be real. Look, if that can't be the basis for the discussion. In the context of what we're discussing, that makes sense, right? Because that's who we currently have as our quarterback. You're saying you don't give up anything to go get Justin Fields when the guy that we already have right now, in your mind, is better than Justin Fields. And I get what you're saying. I don't think he's coming to Washington. I suggested that only because I've been adamant that I think Ian Cunningham's going to be the GM. I could be wrong on that. And there was this report that came out, and the report came from who? From what publication? Like, I saw the tweet. I've seen a lot of erroneous tweets come out of that same account. And I'm not saying that account isn't reputable. I'm just saying it's a Twitter account. Take it for what it's worth, you know? So people running with that, you know, going crazy. Yes, he respects what the Ravens have done, and he may go poaching the Ravens staff. That could absolutely happen. He went there during the summer when we had joint practices with them. He saw their facility. I'm pretty sure he was very smitten with everything that they have going on over there. And he might have said, hey, you know what? They know how to do this. They got the number 1 seed in the AFC. That's not a bad place to start, right? That could be the case. But I also know that this process isn't going to be just some herky-jerky, you know, quick process. They're going to go through this, do their due diligence. They're going to be thorough, and whomever they hire, they hire. And whether it's a, you know, defensive-minded coach, this GM, that GM, it's a male or female, this team president, that team president, it's a male or female, doesn't matter. I just want them to get it right. I just want them to get it right. Kimura, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kimura writes, that graphic with our 2013 coaches was brutal, LOL. I'm sick and tired of seeing it at this point. You know, that's the thing. Now, the only reason that I was okay with it tonight is because they added a new name to it because of Bobby Slowett. It's like this list just keeps getting longer and longer. It's like a damn Energizer bunny. This shit just keeps going and going and going. I'm like, all right, but we didn't heard this shit enough now. To this point, I'm like, okay, how many times you got to, you know, rub this shit in? How many times? Every time we see one of these dudes, you got to show this list. The Packers play tomorrow. I guarantee you they're going to show that goddamn list, right? Like how many times the Dolphins and the Bills play tomorrow night on Sunday Night Football? I guarantee you they're going to show this damn graphic again. Like how many times you got to show us this shit? We know already. We know. We get it. There's a lot of talent that was on the staff in 2013 under Mike Shanahan. I know. I lived through it. I was the one beating off these dum-dums with a stick back in 2013 that said Kyle was only here because of nepotism. I was the one beating them off with a stick like, sit your dumb ass down and shut up. This dude knows offense. You ain't telling me nothing I don't already know. They got to keep reminding us every damn time, oh, this much talent was in Washington. We know. We know. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, about to get out of here. I'll take this one from Niners fan and then we'll go. Niners fan writes, can Houston make some noise in the playoffs? I don't think they would be totally outclassed by Kansas City or Miami, their likely opponents. So Houston will either be playing the 2 seed, I believe. They'll be, if they get in as a division winner, that would mean that they are going to be the 4 seed. So they would be playing Cleveland, right? Or would it be Miami? I think the winner of that division is going to play, because if Miami loses and becomes a wild card, Cleveland, I think, would have a better record I think both of them are currently 11-5, if I'm not mistaken. Cleveland's not going for the win in week 18. If they win, cool. If they don't, it could be Miami. It could be Cleveland. Currently, it's Cleveland, but it could become Miami, I guess, should they lose to Buffalo. But whether it's Cleveland, Miami, or Kansas City, or Buffalo, Buffalo's the one I don't think they want to play on the road. Because if Buffalo wins, they're the 7th seed, and that means they go to Buffalo. I don't think they want any smoke with the Bills, to be honest with you. And I know the Bills aren't playing the best football, but it is still Orchard Park, New York. It's still cold. It's still nasty. I still think I'm not saying that's not an environment CJ Stroud can't go in there and play well and handle, but I do see the Bills being too much for them. But I can see them, Kansas City's offense, the way they're struggling right now, I can definitely see them going in there and beating the Chiefs or giving them a run for their money. I can definitely see them going toe-to-toe with Miami. You know, they've already played the Texans this season. I think they lost that game. Amari Cooper went apeshit just, 3 weeks ago or so. Amari Cooper went for like 3 bills in that game. But so they already have seen them. They know what they're capable of. They can beat anybody in on that side of the bracket other than, and I don't know if you guys recall this, but week 1, the Texans played Baltimore and gave those boys a run for their money. They didn't run away from Houston until the 4th quarter of that game. They were in that game. And they're a much different team than they were in week 1. So this is a dangerous Texans team. The first one is the most important one. If they could find a way to sneak somebody, they could go on a Tennessee Titans 2019 type run that nobody sees coming. I'll just say that. Kimura, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kimura writes, "You the man, Lou." No, you the man. Or female. I'm assuming you're a man, but I shouldn't make that assumption. Anyway, I know you hate my Buckeyes, but we have a lot of talent. So does your Fighting Irish. Take it easy and have a great night. I don't hate your Buckeyes. I don't love your Buckeyes, but I don't hate them. I appreciate you, though. Thank you for the support, and welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. It'd be like that sometimes. I get it. Good to hear from you. And you take care. Have a great night. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of Saturday Night Football Overtime. Had a doubleheader. Both had playoff implications. Steelers take care of business in the first game over a Ravens team that had nothing to play for, 17-10. Steelers get to 10-7 on the season, and now they await the 2 outcomes on Sunday that can potentially put them into the postseason. A loss by either Jacksonville or Buffalo gets them in. If not, they are on the outside looking in. Meanwhile, in the nightcap, it was win and you're in. Winner gets a playoff berth and still has a shot to win the division with a Jacksonville Jaguars loss to Tennessee on Sunday. Meanwhile, the loser goes home. Both teams came into the game at 9-7, and the Houston Texans go on the road and defeat the Indianapolis Colts 23-17, get to 10-7, clinch a playoff berth in the first year under new head coach DeMeco Ryans and first-year quarterback CJ Stroud. Meanwhile, the Indianapolis Colts magical season comes to an end at 9-8 with the loss. Had an opportunity late, dropped by the good running back Goodson out of the backfield, and they miss an opportunity. Oh, I keep saying 23-17. I think it was 23-19. They took a safety at the end of this ball game. Did the Houston Texans to put themselves in a better position to close it out. So 23-19 was the final score. So you guys get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your night. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, different game. If you're a Washington fan, I'll see you at the end of, and we'll probably be watching some of Sunday Night Football together because our game will go off around 7:15 or so. And then I'll be doing the Washington post-game show and then watching Sunday night with you guys, probably the first half or so till we get through the stream. Anyway, I digress. I'll see you guys for that. Take care. God bless and good night.